Hey everyone, Jared Sandler with you. Getting ready for tonight's game between the Rangers and the Mariners, but happy to answer all of your trade deadline questions as we are now inside of 24 hours from the trade deadline. So just fire your questions away. We got about 15 or so minutes, so happy to answer whatever questions you all might have, and we'll be keeping an eye on the Twitter feed just in case anything breaks, because stuff can happen at any moment. But fire away. Just to be honest with you, it is 5:51 here in the Metroplex, and as of now, my guess is Mike Minor does not get traded. Things can change in an instant, but it seems like the market is developed in such a way that the Rangers wouldn't be able to get what they want for Mike Minor, and in that case, there's no reason just to give him away. So those are my thoughts right now. Again, things can change. The last 24 hours of the deadline are wacky. All it takes is one team to get desperate, one team to feel the pressure of the deadline, feel the pressure of another team bearing down on them for them to loosen up the reins on what they are or are not willing to give up. But as of now, my guess is Mike Minor does not get moved. Mike, don't think Ariel Jurado is on the block. I don't know that teams would have much interest in him, and I don't think the Rangers are just going to give him away. He wouldn't get you anything more than a player to be named later, and for that cost, it's not worth it for the Rangers. Brad, don't think there's really much of a market for Cabrera. He hasn't really had a great year. He's not an asset defensively. Yes, he's a switch hitter, but again, maybe a player to be named later. And maybe the Rangers make that move. On August 1st, things can change, and maybe certain guys see playing time at different spots, or maybe certain guys see less playing time, and a veteran on a one-year deal who hasn't been overly productive is a candidate to maybe lose some playing time. So he could get moved, but don't expect, if he were to get moved, it wouldn't be for anything of any sort of appeal. Well, Jonathan, I think the trade scenario that would be most beneficial would be the Rangers moving Mike Minor for a significant haul, one that would compare to what the Rays got for Chris Archer last year, but that sort of a deal doesn't appear to be out there, especially if you consider what the Blue Jays got for Marcus Stroman. They didn't get anything near that, and maybe you think Mike Minor's better than Marcus Stroman, but if that's the case, it's not by a whole lot to where he's now bringing back a whole, another tier of prospect. Now, again, the last 24 hours are crazy, and maybe teams just decide, hey, we desperately need Mike Minor because this team added this guy, or this guy gets hurt, or we got our butt kicked, and our pitching's just been horrible of late, and maybe teams get really aggressive. But that would be the most beneficial one. If not, maybe moving one or two of their relievers for something of some significance. But, you're not in the business of making trades just for the sake of making trades. You're not in the business of just giving guys away. Mike, don't know specifically who reached out about Lance Lynn. I can tell you the Braves, the Phillies, the Yankees, the Twins all expressed interest. Excuse me, not the Twins. But beyond that, I'm not quite positive who all, the list could be larger than that. But, again, if the deal for Lance Lynn would compare to the deal for Marcus Stroman, it makes no sense for the Rangers to make that sort of a move. And we're getting a lot of questions, so just moving down the list. So it might take me a second to get to yours, but I promise I will. Grayson, I don't think so. A lot of people are talking about it, even if big moves haven't been made. I don't know that it's affecting. I don't know that it's affecting the game negatively. I do think it would be beneficial for baseball to move the deadline back to August 15th, especially with the second wild card, and now that there's really only one true trade deadline. But I don't know that it's having a negative effect on baseball. Ozzy, I think teams are just less interested in giving up prospects these days than 10, 15 years ago. I don't think it has anything to do with Minor saying he doesn't want to leave Texas. I don't think teams fear that. Guys go to winning situations. It revs them up. Minor made that comment kind of once, maybe twice, but it's not like he's been pounding his fist for months saying, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be a Ranger for the rest of my career. That's not the case. So, no, I don't think that's incited any fear in teams. Oh, Jason, absolutely. The Rangers can afford Garrett Cole whether they keep Mike Minor or not. That won't have any impact on that. A lot of other teams can also afford Garrett Cole, though, so it's going to be a competition. Mike, that's interesting with Elvis. I don't know what sort of a market there would be because he's not necessarily valued defensively, and that's a position where you don't want to go in the wrong direction. It's not like first base. You need a shortstop, and I think teams might look at Elvis more as a third baseman or just not a shortstop over the next 3 years than they do as a shortstop. And with Choo, again, what are you getting for him? Are you going to have to pay half his contract for him to get on base 38% of the time for another team? I don't know that the Rangers necessarily want to do that. If the team's willing to take on more than half, 3/4 of the deal, then maybe the Rangers would consider that. But I don't know that they're interested in paying Choo to get on base at a high rate for another team. Brian, the latest on Miners, I don't get the sense that he's going to get traded. I'd say it's like I'm throwing out a random number. It's less than 50% is my read right now. Again, that can change. 10 minutes from now, I could be up to 90%. 20 minutes from now, it could be down to 5%. You just never quite know. But right now, I'd say that I'd guess that he doesn't get moved. Blake, the Trey Mancini conversation's interesting. He's a controllable outfielder. He'd be under control through the 2022 season. Can also play first, and maybe if he got dealt to the Rangers, that would be his immediate position. And he's a right-handed bat. But he's not going to be cheap. So, I'm not sure what the Orioles' asking price is. They used to have a front office that kind of was going in several different directions. They seem to be more on a focused track now. They got their stuff together, so I think the Rangers have definitely had conversations and are interested. I just don't really know what the price would be. The market for a controllable outfielder really hasn't been set. Yeah, Joshua, a lot of people want to keep Minor and go after Garrett Cole, and that's very possible. It looks right now like that might be the most likely of all the scenarios. Yeah, Justin, I think the Rangers could still, I don't think this has ever changed. I think the Rangers could definitely acquire controllable pitchers. One guy who, it'd be kind of wacky if they acquired him, but Mike Leake, who's starting tonight for the Mariners. He's not that expensive. He's a controllable pitcher. He's reliable. He's not great. He's not a stud, but he's not a bad guy to fill out a rotation. If you consider what the Rangers have been throwing out there with their fourth and fifth starters, a guy like Mike Leake, who I think the Rangers, if they traded for him, would maybe only be on the hook for like $5 million a year just based on how much the Mariners owe him. And I think the Cardinals still owe him a part of his deal too. So, you look at the contract and he would, I don't think the Rangers would be on the hook for the entirety of his contract. I think the Cardinals and the Mariners would be on the hook for some. Yeah, Jimmy, packaging Mike Minor and Chris Martin is a very likely scenario. And I think the Rangers are interested in doing that, but bringing in future prospects is obviously you're casting a wide net. You're not just doing it to bring in any future prospects. You're doing it to bring in a level of prospect or prospects that are worthy of making that sort of move. And right now, it just doesn't seem like the market has shifted in a way where those sorts of deals are out there. But again, I'll say it. Now I've said it 10 times already. I'll say it another 30 times. The last 24 hours of the trade deadline are crazy, and the market shifts constantly. And desperation and deadlines cause teams to do certain things, and the human side comes into it, and so you never quite know how that's going to shift. Mario, I don't think Choo gets dealt. I really haven't heard anything on that front, and as far as Nomar Mazara, I think Hunter Pence is the guy who might lose some playing time to Willie Calhoun, not Nomar Mazara. If Nomar's here, Nomar needs to play. He's a young guy. He could be a part of your future. You're not going to really benefit from benching him. Hunter Pence has been a great story, but he's not necessarily a part of your future for the next 3 to 5 years. So with Willie Calhoun taking at bats away from a guy who's been here, it's more likely to be Hunter Pence than Nomar Mazara, and maybe you're seeing that tonight because Willie Calhoun's in the lineup and Hunter Pence isn't. Mike, unfortunately, trading for Syndergaard is going to be tough because he's not cheap, and I don't think the Rangers can put together the type of package that the Mets are looking for based on what reports have been out there. The Mets want an arm and a leg and then some stuff on top of that for Syndergaard, as they should. They shouldn't lower the bar for Noah Syndergaard. There's no reason why they have to trade him, and I just don't know that the Rangers can compete with some of the teams that are perhaps interested in Syndergaard, like the Houston Astros, for instance. Brad, well, the Rangers really don't have enough bats. Look at their lineup. Mancini's a 900 OPS guy, should have been an all-star this year, and they need right-handed bats. Just because you're adding a bat doesn't mean you can't add pitching. He's under control through 2022. It's not one or the other. This team has room to grow on the mound and in the box. How many stars do the Rangers have on their team from a lineup standpoint? How many true studs can they build around? Right now, it's only Joey Gallo. There's no reason why they should deny improving their lineup if they have the right opportunity. Danny, I think there's a really good chance the Rangers trade a bullpen guy. As a matter of fact, I'd say I'd put a 90% chance that one of their relievers gets traded. And at that point, you're just looking to get value. I don't know that it's a specific player or a specific piece. I think you're just looking for best value out there. And it's no different than the Mike Minor trade talks. You have a value for your guys, and if a team can reach or exceed that value, then you consider making the deal. If they can't, then you hold on to the guy. But for a guy like Chris Martin, who's a free agent at the end of the year, there's not a whole lot of value in keeping him around. If you want him, you can sign him back. But you have the same odds of signing him, maybe slightly less if he's hurt by getting traded. But you really have the same odds of signing him back after the season as you would if you kept him, as if you trade him. So you're looking for value. You're looking to add depth to your organization. I don't know that they're necessarily targeting one specific type of player. No, I don't think so, Eric, because in order to trade Minor and Lynn, I don't think there's a team out there that would be willing to pay the price for both. And usually teams are only looking for one starter at this point because they're not necessarily looking to pay a big price for a guy who's not going to be in their playoff rotation. They want to trade for guys who will be. And if you look at the teams interested in Minor or Lynn, most of them don't have 2 playoff rotation spots to be filled. And if they do, they don't want to pay the combined price that it would take to get those 2 guys. You got it, Jonathan. Thanks for hanging out. Autumn, I think the chances are really good. If you look at the Rangers' track record, 2 years ago they added Mike Minor, last year Lance Lynn. They've obviously had a lot of success, at that level of the market, adding pitchers and evaluating bargains and trying to find some inefficiencies. But I also think the Rangers are going to be going after a guy like Garrett Cole. I think that he'll be someone they pursue. Now, so will a lot of other teams, and I don't know that the Rangers will be the most appealing team to Garrett Cole, but I certainly think they're prepared to throw a lot of money his way. Daniel, yes, I do think there's a chance of trading for Trey Mancini. I don't know what the price would be, and obviously that could very much influence the conversation. But I do think that there's a chance that they trade for Trey Mancini. At the very least, I think that it would make sense. Brian, shortening the season's not going to happen. There's the owners aren't going to give up however many games they would be asked to give up in terms of gate prices. Yeah, Paul, that's the hope. The hope is that someone gets desperate and throws that Archer-type deal for Mike Minor or Lance Lynn. And I just don't know that teams are there, but that's why, as I've said, the deadline creates wacky things, and someone could get desperate. And that's the sort of deal the Rangers want. And might be asking for a lot, but they should. The Rangers don't need to trade Mike Minor, so they should ask for a lot. They shouldn't settle. And if asking for a lot is a deal similar to what Chris Archer brought the Rays when they traded him to Pittsburgh, then go for it. If that's how they value Mike Minor, then that's how they should value Mike Minor. And if they don't feel like he should be worth a penny less, then don't trade him for a penny less. And if that means you don't trade him, that means you don't trade him. You still have plenty of options. You can trade him in the offseason. Or, hey, he's a part of your rotation next year, and you probably aren't going to have a bad rotation with Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, and whatever moves you make in the offseason. Josh, that's interesting. I don't know. I think some teams value, like the range on how teams value Mazara really varies. I think some teams value him way more than others, and no team values every guy the same by any means. I just think the range for Mazara is maybe a little wider. I don't know. I think with Mazara, you could get a top 5 prospect for a team, and maybe you can get a top 100 prospect from a team. Atlanta obviously perhaps was looking for an outfielder. The problem is Mazara is an outfielder, but maybe he's best as a DH. And not that you're going to relegate him to DH right now, but you've got to be prepared to have a little bit of a hole defensively in right field if that's where you're playing him. And having a really good center fielder can help. So it just depends on the fit. Jason, I don't think Minor for Frazier straight up would work, but maybe Minor and Leclerc or Minor and Chris Martin could do it. I don't know. The Yankees, they don't have to trade Clint Frazier, but he's obviously expendable at this point, so I'm not sure what they would be willing to, what it would take for them to be willing to trade him, but I do think Mike Minor could very much headline a deal that brings Clint Frazier back. You got it, Dustin. Yeah, I mean, Kevin, if you think about it, yes, the contract has a big role in why Odor keeps getting a chance. But he's been really good defensively, and he's been better of late. Now is not the time to bench Odor. Since June 1st, he's got like an 800 OPS. Since June 21st, it's around 900. So if you're gonna bench him or whatever, now is not the time to do it. It would have been 2 months ago. But yeah, he keeps getting a chance because he's a really young player who's done some special things. When you compare Odor and Mazara, I'm not saying Odor is better than Mazara because Mazara has been a better player more consistently. But who's the better defensive player? It's Rugi. Who's the better base runner? Rugi makes some boneheaded plays, but he can do things that Mazara can't. Rugi can score from first on a double every time. Maz can't. Who's got more power? Well, Maz hits the ball farther. He had that 500-foot home run, but Maz has never done anything more than hit 20 home runs in a season. So that's not to say Rugi's a better player. Rugi has inconsistencies and holes, but it's not like Rugi has, for 4 years, done absolutely nothing. He's shown you things, and because you've given him the contract, you're not just going to punt. And, at the end of the day, 2018 ended up being an okay year. You don't like the roller coaster nature of it. You don't like how he was, Jekyll one half and Hyde the next half, and you need more consistency to be more reliable. But at the end of the year, 2017 has been Rugi's only bad year over his last 4 seasons. Now, this year notwithstanding, but in order for him to be a reliable piece, he's got to be way more consistent. All right, we got time for a few more questions. Well, Dustin Cole could come here because he likes his situation. He likes being in Texas, no state income tax. Pitching, not in this ballpark, but in the new ballpark, and money. Money's a big factor, and the Rangers have it. And they haven't spent it in the past few off seasons, and I think they're prepared to spend it here. Now, why would he come here over the Angels or the Phillies? Or I don't know. I don't know what he likes, what he doesn't like. I tell you that this coaching staff is one that players seem to really enjoy playing for, and maybe that would have an influence. Maybe not. But I do know that money is a very appealing recruiting tool, and I think the Rangers have it. Mike, Mazara and DeShields would not get it done for Trey Mancini. That they would not have much interest in that. Mazara and someone else maybe, but not Mazara and DeShields. Yeah, Josh, there is talk of trading Danny Santana. It's so tough to know what he'd be worth because this is his only really good year outside of 2014. So, I think the problem there might be a discrepancy in value, how the Rangers value him versus how other teams value him. The question the Rangers have to ask is, do they think this year is a flash in the pan and they want to take advantage of selling high because there's a chance that his value is never higher than it is now? Or do they think they've found something in Danny Santana? And he's at the age where maybe he's just a late bloomer. Maybe they've found value and they want to have him around because obviously he's been a valuable player. And he doesn't need to be this good to be valuable. He can play a lot of different positions. Even if he's not a 320 hitter, even if he's like a 280, 290 hitter, there's some value there. So I'm not sure what the value would be, but I do know the Rangers have fielded some calls on Danny Santana. Yeah, Josh, the Bauer thing's interesting. I get the sense that Cleveland isn't going to trade him, but again, you never know what sort of a push a team might make last second to change an organization's minds. Tim, I don't think you can get much for Hunter Pence because right now he's really just a DH with the groin injury. He's probably a platoon player on a playoff team. I don't know what playoff teams would necessarily have him as like an everyday, no doubt about it player. And when you're trading for a platoon player, you're not willing to give up nearly as much. So maybe a player to be named later, maybe a level above that, but not a ton. My guess is Hunter stays. Exactly. Well, and that's why Trey Mancini is an option, needing more right-handed batters. All right, you got time for one more question. Yeah, Josh, I mean, as far as who's the first to go, it just depends. I'd say that Chris Martin is maybe the closest to getting moved, but I don't know what that really means. It's like the dot race, right? You watch it and Blue's out in front by a strong margin, then all of a sudden Blue, quote-unquote, trips, and now Red dashes ahead of him because why the heck not? I mean, trying to guess which players traded first, especially when you're this close to the deadline, is really a fool's errand. But I'd say that in terms of guys I'm most confident will get moved individually, I'd say Chris Martin's at the top of the list. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. We'll do this maybe after the game, but we'll do some more of this stuff tomorrow, especially as news breaks. You can follow me on Twitter at Jared Sandler. We'll try to keep you abreast of everything and try to help you understand everything as it all unfolds. But I got to go. Going to be on Ben and Skin here in a second. Hope you'll join me on 105.3 The Fan. Thanks, guys.